Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, the Australia Institute podcast where we're talking about just what the hell is going on in the economy. I'm Elinor Johnston-Leake, the senior content producer here at the Australia Institute, and as always, I'm talking to our chief economist, Greg Jericho. Hello, Greg.
Hi, Elinor.
How are we doing today?
Yeah, good. Good to be here as always.
Yep.
To talk about just what the hell is going on with everything.
And what the hell is going on?
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on in the economy. Well, to start off with, we have some new data out for house prices. So new data covering the first quarter, first 3 months of the year. The Bureau of Statistics Total Value of Dwellings Survey. So this will be the last figures that we have for house prices before the budget came in. So before all these changes were announced to the capital gains tax discount and negative gearing, which, you know, we're pretty sure will probably have an effect on prices if they're passed. So, Greg, what were the numbers in the first quarter of this year?
Yeah, it's this survey is always a really good one because it has averages, it has the median house prices, median apartment prices in each capital city, compares them in the regions and things like that. So a wealth of information. And it's always been kind of, well, as listeners will know, a bit annoying whenever you're talking about house prices because every time new data comes out, oh my gosh, they've gone up again. They've gone up by a lot. And that's exactly what we saw with these figures. In the first 3 months of this year, average dwelling prices across the country went up 2%.
Yep, but that's just in the first 3 months.
That's just compared to the last 3 months of last year, so just 2%. I'm pretty sure everyone's income did not go up 2% in those first 3 months.
I can tell you mine didn't.
No.
No.
In fact, on average, we know all incomes went up about 0.8%, so house prices went up more than double.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the annual increase, which is a bit more what people sort of think of, how much they've gone up in the past year, they went up 10% in that year.
Mm-hmm.
And again, well above incomes. Incomes across the country on an average basis went up around 5%. That's including wages plus in interest and investments and everything.
So again, about double.
About double. But also that's the average across the nation. If you were in, say, WA, average dwelling prices over the past year went up 25%.
Wow,
25.
Just in the quarter?
No, that year. Right. 25 in that year. In that quarter, it was just 7.2%.
Still just.
Just. Yeah. Queensland, we're talking 17%, South Australia 15%, Tasmania 11%, ACT 8%, New South Wales 6%, and Victoria 4%. And it's actually really interesting in that the boom in price that we've seen in the last 2-3 years hasn't really been a Sydney-centric one like it was in the 2010s when Sydney price just went mad. This one, it has really been Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth. They've been the big ones. And to the point where for the first time in March, the median house price in Perth hit $1 million.
Okay.
That joined Canberra, Brisbane, and Sydney, obviously, above $1 million. Mm-hmm. And Adelaide at 980,000 is getting real close to that.
They're pretty close,
so really, again, just another example of that endless increase in house prices. And normally we'd be looking at this going, Jesus, and to be honest, not surprising that we saw this big boom in house prices because what happened at the end of last year was that 5% deposit guarantee. Which at the time was saying this is going to cause house prices to go up. All this does is create more demand in the economy. People go, oh, now I can afford to buy a home. Well, you got more people bidding for a home. What happens to the price of that house? In an auction, it goes up. And we saw the big increase in first home buyer home loans in the size of them. And we're like, that means that house prices are going to go up. And this is what's happened because this is what happens when you just add more demand into the economy. When you say, oh, it's really hard to afford a house, so we'll give a segment of the market more money. Well, that just bids up house prices for everybody. That's what we saw there. So normally this would be just despair and go, God, is this ever going to end? But as you point out, this is the last set of these figures that we'll see before the budget. That doesn't mean the next figures are going to see massive change because not all the legislation's come in and not everything has changed, but maybe this is kind of the peak, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Yeah,
well, assuming that these changes to the capital gains tax discount and negative gearing are passed through Parliament, we're obviously going to see some impact on house prices, but how much do you think we could see sort of in the immediate term? Because some economists are sort of predicting that it could cause house prices to fall by up to 10%, which sounds like a lot. Is it a lot? And is it something we should really be worried about?
Yeah. And firstly, for everyone, just a reminder, so what's happened in the budget at the moment and since 99 when John Howard decided to change things, when you sold an investment property, you made a profit. That's called a capital gain. And instead of paying tax on all of that profit, John Howard said, hey, how about a 50% tax-free? That sounds fair. So let's say you sold your investment property for $400,000 profit. You only paid tax on $200,000. So what the government has done is get rid of that, change it so that you have to take into account inflation over the period that you own that property. So you're taxing the real gains. This is how it used to be when Paul Keating introduced capital gains tax all the way up to 1999. They've also added in a 30% floor, 30% tax rate floor, so that just to ensure that we're getting a closer level of tax being paid by people who earn capital gains, similar to how everyone else pays tax when they earn it through wages. And also negative gearing has ended except for new builds.
Yeah.
But negative gearing has been grandfathered completely, whereas the capital gains tax discount hasn't, but it actually only comes into effect next year. There's a few moving parts there, but effectively undoing the John Howard changes. So what we're seeing, and there's been, it's that weird thing in reporting where one bank economist, I think attached to Morgan Stanley, suggested, their research suggests that house prices could fall 10%. And suddenly that was just taken as everywhere. Economists are predicting a 10% fall. And what will happen if 10% fall? And I was like, okay, just let's rewind where we were 5 minutes ago when I was talking about how much house prices went up in the past year. 10%.
Yeah.
So if they fall 10%, basically it's just undoing the past year. Now, that effectively takes us back to December 2024 prices. Was anyone back in December 2024 thinking, gee, housing's really cheap?
Yeah. Housing's really affordable. Yeah.
No. And that just, and like I was saying, Western Australia, we're talking 25, 27% increases. Oh, it'll go back down 10%. It won't even undo the increases over the past year. So it really just highlights how absurd the housing market has become and also how absurdly it's reported. I mean, it's reporting on house price falls in the same way you would sort of the stock market. It's like, oh no, the stock market's going to crash 10%. What would this mean for your retirement or something? Whereas house prices shouldn't be reported like that. We shouldn't be looking at house prices as though them going up is just a universal good. And if they go down, that's a universal bad. It's like, well, if they go down, that'll mean they're more affordable for people. And that's the whole point. So what I did for my Guardian column was I looked at, okay, let's look at affordability in terms of what's the cost of the average dwelling now in terms of sort of average household income.
Yeah.
Because that's what matters. House prices always have gone up, but they used to go up in line with incomes, which is what's meant to happen, you can buy a better house, or if you get a better job, higher paying, you can afford a better house. You can sell your 2-bedroom, get a 3-bedroom and so on. But what happened after 99? They just went mad.
So, yeah, you're saying things changed in 1999. What exactly happened then?
Yeah, I mean, up till then, as I said, house prices went up in line with incomes.
Yep.
So that meant for about nearly 20 years, the value of average dwelling was worth around 9 years of annual household average income.
Yep.
So that's sort of basically like, let's say if you're earning 100,000, times that by 9, and that was the average price. Now, obviously, back in 1999, the average income wasn't 100,000; it was a lot less than that. But that gives you that ratio.
Yeah.
So it was 9 times. Now it's 17.3 times.
Yeah.
For 30 years, I've sort of been able to chart going back to 1970. From 1970 to 2000, it bumped up and down around between 8 and 9 years.
Yeah, pretty consistent.
Pretty consistently. You know, in the late 80s, there was an asset boom and things, but then it went down and, you know, it stayed around there. So for 30 years, it did that. And in the 26 years since 1990, or since the changes came into effect, it's gone from 9 to 17.
Yeah, almost triple.
Yeah. And it's like, that's the issue right there. And then I was like, okay, what does that mean in sort of real dollars? So as I was saying, the average dwelling price right now across the country is $1.1 million. Okay?
Yeah.
We have a 10% drop in prices that I think Morgan Stanley economists are saying, okay, well, that takes it back to $1 million.
Yeah.
Which is just absurd that we're throwing around these numbers. If the average dwelling price had stayed consistent with that sort of 9 years worth of average income, average household income, we wouldn't be talking about average dwellings of $1.1 or $1 million. We'd be talking right now, the average dwelling price would be $592,000.
Oh my gosh.
509.
Yeah.
If we were saying that, we're not having a podcast right now talking about housing affordability. We haven't been saying for 2 years, can Elinor afford a home? It's, you know, it's.
If the median price was $590,000, I think I probably could.
Yeah, because back in, and I was one of those who bought, my wife and I bought our first home back in the late 90s. It was a townhouse. And, you know, she was working as a teacher. I was working part-time in a casino, you know, and I was studying at the time. And, we'd saved up for, you know, combined, she'd been working for nearly 10 years. I'd been smooching off.
You've been leeching off.
Leeching off. Let's say she was the financial pants wearer in the household.
Let's get her on the podcast.
Yeah. But, you know, we were basically able to do it on 1 and a bit incomes.
Yeah.
To get, and, you know, okay, it was a townhouse, 2-bedroom townhouse. So, you know.
It's pretty respectable.
But it was a great start.
Yeah.
Because it cost, I think from memory, around $100,000.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
this was in Cairns.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is
still.
And Cairns at the time was seen as a fairly expensive place to buy, you know, and it's just that relativity was such that we were able to afford that. Now, it's just, you know, you say that and people are like, you know, I'm looking at your face and you're like.
HECS debt's bigger than that.
Yeah. I mean, and throw everything in the mix. My HECS debt was, I think, maybe 9,000.
Really?
Yeah. And I did 4 years. I did an honours degree.
Oh.
You know?
Gosh.
Yeah, it just wasn't even a thing that I thought about because it was, you know, it wasn't a big thing. So you throw that into the mix, and look, it's not just the capital gains tax discount. It's the first home buyer grants. It's the home builders. It's the 5% deposit guarantee. What happened in 1999 was John Howard introduced a distortion into the housing market that gave investors a huge advantage over everyone else. And what governments had done for 26 years was try to undo that distortion by adding another distortion.
Yeah.
Like, they've got an advantage, so we'll give someone else an advantage. And, that's incredible. Well, then we'll give other people an advantage. And then we'll make it, if you're building a home, you got an advantage. 5% deposit guarantee advantage. And all it just did was add to the demand.
And just push houses prices further up.
I would see data like this and go, well, fuck. This is just going to keep going. Is anything ever going to happen? That's why the budget change was so crucial. And next week, Matt Grudenoff and I will actually be appearing before the Senate inquiry into the legislation, which is before the Senate. And we'll basically be saying, look, this was ground zero. This was the source of the problem. Everything else has just been either adding to it or doing nothing. And the only way you were going to improve things was you had to go to the source. You had to fix that.
Yep.
So these changes, the capital gains tax discount and negative gearing to a lesser extent, look, they're not going to undo everything. Like, let's say right now, this moment, house prices fall 10% on average. Well, we'll go from 17.3 years worth to 15.6 years worth. That's still a hell of a long way above 9 years. And that'll just take us back to the sort of the affordability of houses back in 2023,
Yeah.
And again, was anyone in 2023 dusting their hands going, phew, house price affordability problem solved? No. We've had 26 years of damage. This isn't going to undo it. But even if we do get that 10% fall, God, don't
panic.
Yeah, calm down.
Yeah.
It's if you do own a home, chances are you're not selling your home. Most people don't sell their house. Most people are not selling their houses.
Yeah. And if they do, and they buy another house
it'll be cheaper as well.
It'll be cheaper.
Yeah. It all sort of flows around. So calm down. Stop treating the housing market like the stock market. It's not that. It should be about people being able to have a place to live and be secure. And hopefully this is the start of returning it back to that rather than John Howard, let's treat it like an investment casino.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the next figures we see, there'll be some change. Yeah. Well, also this week, another bit of the budget was coming under scrutiny, the massive cuts to the NDIS.
If we don't take action now, we risk a situation in the future where a future government decides to make massive unfair cuts to the NDIS and deprive people of the support that they require.
When disabled people die as a direct result of this bill, and they will, their blood will be on your hands.
There's a Senate inquiry committee on this week into the cuts, which is only going for 3 days, which doesn't seem like a whole lot to me, but, moving on. So the massive cuts to the scheme, around $36 billion over the next few years. The government has been saying this is to keep the NDIS sustainable. The inquiry itself received more than 4,000 written submissions in just over a fortnight. And I guess they have 3 days to hold public hearings. Since we last talked about the cuts, we've got some more detail in the legislation that's come out, and it's worse than you initially thought it would be. So what are the new details that we've got?
Yeah, I mean, when the cuts were announced on budget night, I wrote in my Guardian column on it that these were cruel. These were basically the government choosing to be mean.
Yeah.
And I did a sort of back of the envelope estimate that it was probably about a 10% cut. Now I think it's closer to 12% cut in real terms. Huge impact. And the general view was people were kind of thinking, okay, they're probably going to be focusing on autism, ADHD, and the sense was, maybe there are some who probably shouldn't be on NDIS.
Yes, that they don't need the support.
Now, I'm not arguing yes or no on that, and I still think, even when I thought that, I was writing, this is the government choosing to be mean and cruel, so it's not like I was like, oh, well, that's good. But then you see the legislation, and really what we're going to be seeing is some incredibly brutal cuts across the board. And what the bill does is give the ability for the minister to, via regulations, just decide that certain streams of an NDIS, because if you're within the NDIS and you're getting funding, there's certain streams that your funding comes under, and I don't know all the precise terms, but, think like equipment is a different stream to something else.
Yeah.
And what the real one that they're focusing on is a stream that is basically called social, economic, and community participation.
Okay.
Now, this is a stream I know about quite well because my daughter, who some listeners might have, I think we've talked about in the past, she's got Down syndrome. She's turning 20 in a couple of weeks, and she gets funding for this stream because last year she finished high school. So this year it was like, okay, what's she going to do? Because she cannot stay home by herself. She can't make her own meals. She needs help.
Yeah.
She's nonverbal. So if anything was to happen to the house or something, she'd be stuffed. And also we wanted her to keep developing her skills and abilities. And so she attends a couple of different programs where basically she's with them during the day and she does some basic work activities. There's some where she's working in a special cafe, some where she's doing some recycling of things, some where she's learning how to do some real basic admin stuff like printing, like photocopying or even shredding, and other things where it's just physical things, like learning yoga, and other things like this week they took her on a bit of a trip where she went on the light rail to get used to public transport, because at the moment getting on public transport kind of freaks her out a bit. She's like, oh, I don't know about this. This isn't the car that I'm used to. This isn't the bus that I'm used to. These type of things, which are absolutely crucial. These are not like, oh, she gets to just go play. These are things that not only develop her skills and give her the opportunity to have a good life and learn how to interact with adults, learn how to be within the community, but also it means that my wife and I are not taking care of her 24 hours a day. We actually are able to continue working. And we've got carers who are able to pick her up and everything like that. Now, what this legislation says is the minister can determine that this stream will, and they give an example in the explanatory memorandum, this stream will be cut by 25%.
Just across the board?
Across the board.
Yeah.
And that means every single person's funding in that stream will be cut by 25%.
Yeah. No assessment as to individual need or anything? No.
The only caveat they have there is a regard to the individual's safety, but that's just a fig leaf thing. And also if it just, again, puts the onus on families and the people with disabilities to prove that cutting this would hurt their safety, and you already got enough hurdles to get over. And if you look at the explanatory memorandum, they give examples of this happening, and there is not one treatment of the person as an individual. It's just the minister has decreed that this will be cut.
Yep.
And so it's cut.
Yeah.
And
so this assumption that the cuts would be, where they actually supposedly are, where the support isn't needed. It's just across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Guardian actually did a report a few weeks ago where they looked at the NDIS data, which breaks down funding streams by disabilities. And people with Down syndrome are the biggest users of this stream, or one of the biggest users of this stream. And that's because it's just vital. Like Emma, our daughter, would not go outside if it wasn't for this. She wouldn't. She would be happy to just sit on the bed and do nothing. And she will just watch her iPad or watch the TV. And unless we were to tell her, oh, it's time to eat or she would just carry on until she suddenly, I'm really angry because she's hungry. But it's not like she has the ability to get up and go make herself a sandwich. That's not happening.
These are the types of people who desperately need these services.
Absolutely crucial to it. And if the hearings in the Senate have just been heartbreaking, where there's been lots of testimony from people with disabilities who are going to be affected by these cuts, people speaking on behalf of those with disabilities because, they can't speak, like my daughter. And the stories are harrowing. And, my column that I wrote for Deep Cut News this week, we're already in the midst of a harrowing case with the NDIS trying to just get her plan approved because we needed a new plan because she was going from high school to adult life. And we've been battling for 9 months to get this heard. And a week ago, we finally talked to someone who actually knew what was going on and said, "Oh, yeah, sorry, it's fallen through the cracks." And no one's actually reviewed this. And we're like, you realize we've been told things that, don't worry, the funding will get improved. Don't worry, the current funding will roll over. The current funding is stopped. We're now having to pay for these things out of our own pocket in the hope that they will get approved. But, it's just real hell.
Yeah.
And the big worry is even if we do get this approved in a year's time, they might go, oh, actually 25% cut.
Yeah, more cuts.
And, these service providers and the service providers we go to are not for profit. They are foundations. These are not, they're not rorting the system or anything like that. They're not going to be able to just cut their prices and costs by 25% because these are really labor intensive. They need lots of carers, lots of people who are trained to do this. And this is the other thing. People think, we rang up the NDIA and the person said to us, does your daughter really need this? After we explained, yes, it's vital because
of all the reasons you just said. Yep.
And then it's like, but couldn't, they were talking to my wife and said, couldn't you or your husband just stay home from work? And I'm like, no. One, my wife's a teacher, can't teach from home. I have to be in the office as well. I've got a fair few commitments, such as this podcast. And also, we're not actually trained to teach her, to give her these skills because we don't have these skills.
Because they are skills.
Yeah. Caring for and teaching people with disabilities is a skill. And this sense of, you could just stay home and do them. It's like, no. If I stay home with Emma, she'll be like, your dad, I'm staying here on my bed, and if you want me to leave, I'm going to get grumpy. Whereas when we say, it's time for, basically we call it work, she knows exactly, yep, that's what I do on the weeks, and she's ready to go because that's her routine.
Yeah.
And she needs that.
Yeah. One thing that also really frustrates me about the government's about the, I suppose, reasoning behind the cuts is, they're talking about getting rid of the shonks in the NDIS providers, but just the blanket cuts, how is that possibly going to get rid of shonks at all? It doesn't fix any structural
And we
issues.
also had a really good column by Chris Coombs on The Point, I think this week, where pointed out that actually the claims about rorting the system are a bit overblown. There's not a lot of evidence. There was sort of a figure thrown out in a Senate hearing suggesting, it could be up to this, and that's just been taken as given.
Yeah.
And one of the problems with that is it's been used as the excuse for these blanket cuts. So you say, we got to get rid of the rorting. That's why we're cutting $36 billion out of the system, and that's why we're going to be reducing this stream. The examples in the explanatory memorandum are of a 25% cut and a 50% cut. And the legislation gives the ability to cut up to 99%. So you can't cut it to 100%, but you can do all the way forward. And the thing is, this would mean, let's say we have a change of government, there would not need to be any legislative changes or anything. A health minister could say, yep, I'm going to cut all the streams in the NDIS by 99% and basically kills NDIS without even having to legislate it. And it's like, yeah, well done, Labor. So what we're seeing at the moment, there's an inquiry in the Senate. The Greens are agitating to make it longer. They certainly are not going to agree to these changes. Neither will, I would suggest, most of the crossbenchers. One Nation, who the hell knows? They're not turning up to the Senate inquiry.
Yep.
David Pocock's been very strong in his questioning. What will the Liberal Party do? They'd like these cuts because they don't really give a shit about the NDIS, but they also like shafting Labor. So they might twist the knife and not let Labor have these cuts because it blows their budget and other things. So I don't know, but it's just a really bad outcome for people on the NDIS and my daughter.
Well, yeah, thank you for, I guess, sharing what this program means to Emma and your family. It really, it's good to get a firsthand account, really, of how useful these programs are, how vital these programs are to people in the NDIS.
Yeah, thanks. And as I say, people, if they go to Deep Cut News, a Substack, they can read my column where I definitely don't hold back. We'll leave a link in the show notes. But, Elinor, we're going to have to end it there.
I think
That's
so.
It.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. House prices, NDIS, some good news, some bad news.
Yep.
That's
how
dollars
it
and
is.
cents for us. Everyone, we will be back with another episode of Dollars and Cents. Thank you for listening this week. This episode of Dollars and Cents was recorded on the 11th of June, and some things may have changed. If you'd like to see all the incredible graphs about house prices over the past 50 years, head on over to Guardian Australian site and check out my column there. As I say, Deep Cut News got my NDIS column. And for all other things, all the wealth of information and research and opinion that you need to have, head on over to thepoint.com.au and you'll find everything there, including all of the podcasts that we do, such as Follow the Money and After America. Music, as always, is from Blue Dot Sessions. Everyone, have a great one, and we'll catch you all next week.
See ya.